Everybody, man, thrilled to be with you.
What's up, family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
5 minutes of happiness. We're going to give you 60 minutes of happiness right here on the Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio. Thrilled to be with you guys as always. And we hang with you each and every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. But this timed up perfectly. I mean, this week, we timed this bad boy up right coming off that Eagles game last night. Oh, man. So much ground to cover today, both with the Eagles and the Phillies as we're about to embark on Red October here. Philly season regular season at least, coming to a close very quickly, but the playoffs on the horizon. I have full confidence that not only will they lock up a playoff spot, they will lock up the number one seed for the wild card. And we'll get to that. That's for sure. But let's start with the Eagles. And by the way, encourage each and every one of you hanging out with me today to hop into the chat. Let's have a little discussion, man. Let's make this a mutual thing where we're going a little bit back and forth. Let's be interactive here with this. But you know, I think about the way that we talked about last week's game, right? And the way that we felt about the first 2 weeks. And it feels like to me, even though it wasn't perfect on Monday night against the Bucs, it feels like to me that at least most of the fan base, and I'll just speak for myself, feels a little bit better about this win, even though, again, it wasn't the prettiest, of wins, than you did about the first 2 weeks. I think for a couple of reasons. What we're starting to see emerge here is a team that is incredibly good at running the ball and a team that's incredibly good at stopping the other team running the ball, right? And you're starting to see an identity emerge. And I think that's something that I think Philadelphians can relate to in a big way. With this team for sure. Let's face it, they are a little blue collar here. In usually the NFL, or what the NFL's kind of turned into in 2023, is a league that likes to throw the ball. And it's not to say the Eagles don't like to throw the ball. They certainly do. But just the way that they're built right now at this juncture, they're a team that certainly runs the ball better than they pass the ball. So, all right, let's jump around a little bit and let's start on that side of the ball, the offense. You know, what we've seen over the course of the last 2 weeks when they inserted DeAndre Swift really into this thing is a running game that is right there with anybody in the league. Okay, when you think about it. And Tony says, not too bad considering we had 11 days off. Yeah, Tony, here's what I would say to that. I think the 11 days really played in their favor for a lot of reasons, right? You were able to get some guys healthy, get them back out on the field, Bradbury, Blankenship, et cetera. You were able to correct some things along the way and make some adjustments, especially in the secondary, which I think we saw on Monday night. It looked a lot better. Wasn't perfect, and Mike Evans got his, and Chris Godwin got his, but it looked better than it looked against the Vikings. So I think the coaches and the players both aided from that little extra time. But back to the offense. So Swift, once again, 16 rushes, 130 yards. Amazing what he's done here. Last 2 games, 305 yards and a touchdown. Now, that happens for a couple of reasons, right? First and foremost, kudos to him. I think he's really running hard. I think he is not afraid to bust it inside. He's not a guy who's strictly looking for space and not maybe necessarily wanting to get the contact. I think that was something you saw a little bit with Miles Sanders the last couple of games. Pete, what's up, my man? With the old school Phillies logo, which I love. Michael checking in. Michael, my man. Feels like this offense is starting to find its footing. Yeah, that I would agree, Mike. I think the footing / identity right now is they're a running team. And I know you're going to, some people may say, my God, man, you pay Jalen Hurts all that money to be a game manager. No, I don't think that that's the case. Number one, I don't think this is the role that he's going to play the entire season. I don't think it's the fact that he's a little bit inconsistent right now and a little bit off is going to continue throughout the season. I don't believe that. I really don't. Do I think that Swift is more suited for this offense than Sanders, as Pete asks? Yes, I do. I do, Pete, because I think DeAndre Swift has the ability and the want to run it inside, but also can be a killer in space, and he's a better receiver. Even though we haven't really seen much of that part of it, he is. But where things are with this running attack and this offense in general, with this team right now, is you're riding a hot hand. You're doing what you need to do to win football games. I mean, let's not overlook the fact that they basically, took out a pin, punctured the ball, and let the air come out of it for 9 minutes and 22 seconds to end that game. I mean, if you think about it, the game wasn't completely over. I mean, I felt pretty safe that they were going to be okay in the game. It wasn't really a sweat kind of game, but you're up 14 points after they get the 2-point conversion, and there's 9:22 left in the game. And basically, the Eagles and the offensive line and the offense in general said, you know what we're going to do? We're not giving you the ball back, okay? If they're a running team, which I agree, I'm completely here for it, whatever it takes for this team to be playing football February 11th. Michael, I concur. It's not about style points. It's not about how you do it, how you get there, whatever. Just get there. Who cares? I mean, this was my point with the first two games where people were looking for like style points. It's not about that. Just win. And that's what they're doing. Not a lot of teams have the ability to go to a plan B if A maybe isn't great right now, but they do. So savor that. That's a big thing. But back to the end of the game. So the Eagles basically said, you know what, we're not going to give you the ball back for 9 minutes and 22 seconds. Todd Bowles had timeouts and just gave up. What's up, Mean Metal Mike? Go Eagles. Go Phillies. Go Flyers. Love the name too. And he just basically said, look, we're probably not going to be able to stop you. You could kick a field goal if you want it. You could probably drive it in for a touchdown if you want it. And I don't feel all that confident in my offense. So if you get the ball back, that we're going to be able to score 2 touchdowns anyway. And he basically was like, let it in. Let's go. Let's wrap it up. That told you a little something to me. Like if I'm a Tampa fan, I'm pissed off, but nonetheless, good for the Eagles. And the fact that you're able to do that and just absolutely take another team's heart and instill your will and just go, give me that heart. Poof, take it out of there. Ugly win, pretty win, put up 70s to win. I agree with you. It doesn't have to look like what the Dolphins do, where they're on a mission to sort of reinvent things. And I'm not knocking Mike McDaniel. I think what he's doing is absolutely freaking awesome. But the Eagles are doing it a little bit different, and it's going to sound weird to hear this, or for you to hear this, for me to say it. They're doing it in a traditional manner. What I mean is non-traditional in this day and age where it's a passing game, traditional where it's an old school way to win football games, right? So that's what they're doing right now. I think they found the guy in Swift. I know some people don't like the fact that they're mixing a lot of Gainwell in games, in particular later in games. I think what they're doing is they're trying to preserve this guy. His injury history is such that you're trying to preserve him. I think you're not looking to turn him into somebody who gets 22 carries per game. I just don't know that he is that guy. I don't know that they believe he's that guy. So that's why you're seeing some Gainwell. I'm surprised you haven't seen a little bit of Penny at least. That sort of surprises me. But nonetheless, you're winning in large part because you have a running attack. You have an offensive line that absolutely has a combination of mauling people at the point of contact, but also being athletic enough to get down the field and open up some holes. I think Swift's been great, but here's what I will tell you. Any competent NFL running back should be able to run behind those offensive linemen and through those holes that they're opening up. The holes they're opening up are gigantic by NFL standards, just gigantic. So that's working. And here's where I'll also give credit to Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni. It's probably not the way they want to win. Bruce, correct. Hurts was sick last night with the flu. He admitted as much, didn't use it as an excuse, but he did cop to it last night that he was sick. And he said for some reason, it always happens to him on Monday night. I will absolutely, Michael, I'm going around the NFL a little bit later, and I will certainly touch on Zach Wilson. I got some numbers for you on Zach Wilson. And let me tell you something. Joe Namath is right on, which we will get into. And Robert Saleh is going to have to get off this thing real quick. I know what he's doing. I know he's protecting his guy. I know he feels like he's got his guy's back and he has to. But woof, that Zach Wilson's a disaster. I credit Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni with winning the way that you have to win. That's what I'm encouraged about more than anything else. They are doing it the way that they have to do it, not necessarily the way they want to do it. And that's okay. Some coaches would be so stubborn that they would enforce their will and make a team keep throwing. And I give Howie Roseman in the front office credit because I know that's not the way that they necessarily believe that you win in the NFL anyway. But here's the other part of this. What you're seeing now isn't necessarily what you're going to see 3-4 weeks from now. What you're seeing now is a team that's making progress that isn't all the way there, that is fixing things along the way and still winning in the process. Just hard to do if you think about it in this league. I mean, there's only 3 teams, Baltimore versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl, Baltimore versus the Phillies in the World Series. All right, Mean Metal Mike, M cubed. I got you on that. You know what? That would be pretty cool. Actually, think about that, man. The I-95 border war right there with Baltimore, and the Phillies get a little revenge for 1983 when the Orioles knocked them out of the World Series. I could buy that. John Harbaugh. Yeah, that would work. Zach needs to learn how to play in the NFL with an experienced quarterback. He does. That's for sure. And they thought they had the perfect setup with Aaron Rodgers, and it was over in 4 plays. But back to the Eagles, what I was saying was what you're seeing now isn't necessarily what you're going to be seeing in 3-4 weeks from now when they really start to get into the meat of the schedule, right? I think at that point, they'll have things a little bit more fine-tuned in the passing game. And here's the great part at that point. You're going to be such a dual threat. You're going to be able to run the ball, right there almost with anybody in the league. I mean, right now, Swift is second in yards behind Christian McCaffrey. And I think you're going to see Jalen Hurts look a lot more like the Jalen Hurts that we saw last year rather than the guy who's been inconsistent so far this year. I really believe that. I think it's taking some time for he and Brian Johnson to get on the same page. And I guess we should have expected that a little bit more than we did. And I'm talking about me too. I thought that he and Johnson, because they had such a good relationship, they knew each other. And I don't think there's any issues, any ill will. But it's like anything else. You kind of learn a little bit from what you're doing. You're learning on the job a little bit if you're Brian Johnson. And I think if you're Nick Sirianni, you need to give him the rope to be able to learn. You don't want to Bigfoot him. You don't want to get in there and say, hey, man, call this, call that. I think Nick jumps in there sometimes with suggestions and whatnot. But he's letting his young offensive coordinator grow into the job. And I think in the meantime, in the process of that, he and Jalen are figuring some things out and fine-tuning some stuff along the way. What you see is a mixed bag from Jalen. A couple more interceptions. One was a clear miscommunication on the play with he and Swift. The other one was not a good throw. But then you saw the Zaccheaus throw, which was ridiculous. I mean, he stands tall in the pocket. The offensive line did a good job giving him time, but it got to the point where he knew he was going to get hit hard. He gets hit hard, still delivers it, and he delivers it in a way where he leads Zaccheaus to the ball away from the defender and takes him right into the end zone. It was a hell of a throw last night from him. I think the other thing that we're seeing from Jalen is there's clearly, I don't want to go as far as to say an edict, but clearly he's not running as much by design, whether it's RPOs or quarterback draws or quarterback keeps. And I think he's being a little bit more protective of his body where, he's sliding, whereas before he might take on somebody or try and get a couple extra yards. And I think he's trying to preserve himself for the long haul also. So you are seeing a little bit of a different approach with him, trying to keep him healthy and keep him upright. There's some things you can't do anything about. He takes a hit in the pocket after he throws the ball. That's just playing quarterback in the NFL. But I think all in all, what we're seeing here is one facet of the offense is there. Another facet of the offense is not quite there yet. But when you have the offensive line that they have, when you have the talent like Jalen Hurts, like A.J. Brown, who had a good game last night, although a couple drops, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, et cetera, not to mention the running attack that you have, like to me, it's only a matter of time before that portion of the offense gets going for sure. So am I loving what I'm seeing in totality from the offense? No, not yet. Really happy with the running game. Willing to give the passing attack more time, because let's face it, when you're playing the Dolphins and you're playing the Bills and you're playing the Cowboys and the Seahawks and the Niners and those heavyweight kind of teams, you're going to have to score. You're going to have to score through the air. And I don't know that you're going to be able to do this sort of methodical thing where you're just pounding teams into submission in the run game. That much I don't think is going to be the case. So that's the offensive side. When we come back, I want to get into the defensive side. I want to get into special teams because Britton Covey showed up last night, people. Yes, he did show up last night, but the defense in particular, the young cats, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Reed Blankenship, they're for real, folks. They're for real. And what we're seeing on that side of the ball is a transition to the younger guys before our very eyes, with also seeing Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, some of the older guys still contributing in a big way. It's a pretty interesting thing that's happening on that side of the ball. All right, we'll get a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll delve into the defensive side of the ball for the Eagles, who are 3-0, one of three teams, 49ers, Dolphins, and Eagles, that are still standing without a blemish on their record. You are hanging with me. I am Rob Ellis. This is the Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio. Right back.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years, and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
Wow, man, Royal Billiards got it all right there. That hot tub looked good. Welcome back in, everybody. Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio, hanging out with you. Currently discussing the Eagles. We will delve into the Phillies. We will go around the NFL. I saw that Mike wants to touch on Penn State. We'll get into some Nittany Lions as well. Look, there isn't anything I can't talk, people. I can't. I'm a Heisman Trophy voter. I was at an SEC game this weekend. I went to South Carolina and Mississippi State, watched my Gamecocks take care of business down there. So we will certainly touch on some college football as well. All right, let me go to the defensive side. There's some really crazy things going on defensively in a good way. Jalen Carter is an absolute beast. And he's not just a beast who's a rookie. He's a beast, period. If he was a 10-year vet, a 5-year vet, had played 3 games like he has, this guy's a monster. This is the guy that other teams game plan for. He's that good. He, as I told you before the season, he will be in every Rookie of the Year conversation. Absolutely be in every. He is getting love from all the national pundits. It's not just Philadelphia who recognizes what this guy's doing. He's a monster. He's a monster. The strength is there. The quickness is there. The moves are there. He has the moves of a veteran, and he has the ability to get in the backfield, get after the quarterback, stuff the run. How about the hustle play where he busts off the defensive line after the completion and punches that thing loose for the forced fumble? I don't like going super hyperbole with things, all right? And I know some people may not have seen Jerome Brown, but let me tell you something. I say this with the highest of praise. Jerome Brown was a spectacular football player, would have been a Hall of Famer had he not died prematurely. Jalen Carter has a lot of Jerome Brown traits, a lot of traits. He's not him. He's got to do it for a long time to be him, to be in the same breath with him. But what I'm telling you is what Jerome looked like his rookie year is what this guy looks like. He's that good. Now, his running mate next to him, Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis has taken such a leap from week 1 to week 2, year 1 from year 2. Year 1, he looked like somebody who you were hoping was going to be decent against the run. Big body, could occupy blockers, let your linebackers eat a little bit, let others make plays. And that would have been fine. He had a lot of injuries. There were things that happened rookie year, maybe conditioning, etc. Well, you're seeing that he's in great shape. There isn't any circumstance where he has to come out of the game, which is huge. And he's another one. He is blowing stuff up. You see the play that he made and Carter made on the Morrow safety? I mean, that's where you're letting the people behind you make plays. And man, has he been so good. And the fact that, you hit on your last 2 first rounders, if you're Howie, and then you look at your second round, like what Juergens is doing, just to stay on the youth thing, just to hop over the offensive side for a minute. He looks like he stepped in there pretty seamlessly. So that, all good signs right there with the young guys. But Davis and Carter in particular have been awesome. And, Reed Blankenship, we almost looked at Reed Blankenship like he was going to be a starting safety by default because they didn't want to put that much money into the position, because they didn't have that much talent there, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, this guy can play. There was 2 things that really stood out to me. The obvious one was the interception and the way that he read that. And, he's now picked off Aaron Rodgers and Baker Mayfield in his very short career, which is great. But the other thing that you saw with him, and he had 7 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, but he had a form tackle on a running back in space that not a lot of guys are able to execute. It's a hard thing in space, and he wrapped the guy, hit him hard, wrapped him, brought him down. It was a big-time play from Reed Blankenship. So that's another good young player on that side of the ball. I look at this with a lot of encouragement. You haven't even gotten anything out of Hassan Reddick yet. I thought Sweat was excellent in the Vikings game. I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper in this one to see where he was in the Tampa game, but he didn't seem to have the same kind of impact. You're also dealing with a defensive backfield that's missing Avonte Maddox. And so James Bradbury says, all right, you want to throw me in the slot? Throw me in the slot. Not a problem. And then Job goes to the outside. Job got beat a couple times, but think about how much better this is going to make him, as the season goes on. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. You didn't see the same kind of breakdowns where you had guys just running unscathed, wide open in the Bucs game like you did in the Vikings game. That's something else where I see corrections being made with Sean Desai and the defensive backs coach and the linebackers coach. I think all those folks on the same page and making those kind of improvements are huge. But what they're doing to teams in the run game. So let me give you a couple numbers here. First downs in the game for the Eagles, 27-12 for Tampa Bay. Let's just take it a step further. Rushing first downs in the game. Eagles 12, Tampa Bay 1. You can't run on the Eagles. Okay? You can't. They're the best team in football against the run. Jake, I agree. He thinks Reddick will make his presence known against that suspect Washington line. So Washington, just to jump on Jake's point here, Washington last week gave up 9 sacks, turned the ball over 5 times. Through 3 games, they have allowed 19 sacks. They're not good, and they're banged up. The Eagles' defensive line will 100% eat this week. I agree with him that Reddick will start getting loose. Derek Gunn's reporting he's getting the cast off. That's going to be big, I think, for him to be able to utilize his hands again. You know what, Ralph, let's throw up the A2D question of the day, because I want to get people see where they are. I feel better about the Eagles' Super Bowl chances through 3 games. Agree or disagree? Because I think if I asked this question, and we asked this question last week, I don't think people would say yes, but I think they will agree. You guys tell me, do you agree or disagree? You feel better about the Eagles' Super Bowl chances through 3 games? Where are you with this? Do you feel better than you did last year? Do you feel better than you did through 2 games? Where do you fall on this in terms of agree or disagree? I absolutely agree, because I think the offense is going to continue to improve. I think you maybe, as crazy as it sounds with Javon Hargrave, Robert agrees. Robert Driscoll. Thanks, Robert. You lose Hargrave, who was an 11-sack guy. You actually might be better on the interior defensive line, as crazy as that sounds. It really might. I mean, Bruce jumps in. Yes, most certainly feel better, but it's early. It's only game 4 coming up. Let's calm down. Yeah, Bruce, I don't want to calm down. I want to enjoy it. You know, I want to live in the moment here. I'm not telling you that they're an automatic lock to win a Super Bowl, but it's okay to smell the roses after a win or go crazy after a loss. That's part of fandom, right? That's part of what we do here. And I think it's you can take a critical eye and react to certain things. And I think that's kind of, where things are. But let me give you some other numbers here. Jalen Hurts is a starter, 20-1 in his last 21 regular season games. He just wins. They have 8 takeaways already through 2 games. That's something they did at a really high clip last year, before about that middle portion. It was actually for about the first 3 quarters of the year. And then they weren't getting quite as many takeaways, but early they were really good. So far this year, they've been really good. Okay. And a couple more last night, but a couple other things to look at here. This number blows your mind. Okay. And this is from Paul Domowitch. Last 2 games, offensive plays from the Eagles, 153, 153. Opponents, 79. 153 to 79 in terms of offensive plays. So there's 2 things going on. The other team can't get the Eagles off the field, and the opponent is going a lot of 3 and outs. Okay. That's what's happening here. That is unbelievable. Okay. Unbelievable. So the Eagles on Monday night, 12 rushing first downs, Tampa Bay 1, 12-1. This is some lopsided stuff here, folks. Time of possession can be misleading sometimes, not in this case. All right, time of possession last night, 38-55 for the Eagles, 21-05 for the Bucs. If you're not on the field, offensively, it's very hard to score. Okay, your defense could do it, maybe your special teams. Odds aren't likely for that. So you're keeping other teams off the field. It's kind of what the Eagles had done to them last year, where teams said, you know what, we're not going to let Jalen Hurts and those guys on the field. We're going to try and run it. Washington was successful at it last year in the game that the Eagles lost to them. And I'll get into Washington a little bit more in a second here. But this is spectacular stuff here. It really is. It's impressive stuff, what the Eagles have been able to do. You're ripping off over 300 yards rushing the last 2 weeks. DeAndre Swift looks like he looks in the offensive line. Again, it's just a matter of getting Jalen Hurts going. The good thing is I think he sort of reconnected with A.J. Brown last night. There were a few balls that A.J. I thought could have caught, but still, he had a really good game. It was a quiet night for Devontae, and I think they're still trying to figure out Dallas Goedert. What's up, Brian? Yeah, it was actually a really good win last night, Brian. I agree with you. I like where this team's at. The thing is, I think we all set such a high bar that we want every game to look like last year, where you just kind of steamrolled, and it's not going to look like that. You still won by 2 touchdowns. This was a 25-11 game. The thing is, it felt more to me, at least, and I don't know whether you guys agree or not, it felt like a 42-11 game. They get stuffed on that 4th down on the first drive. That felt like it was going to be 7 or 3. Then Jalen has the 1 pick late in the half, and good for the Eagles. They get it back after the Jalen Carter punches the ball loose, but that could have been 7 or 3. This should have been a game that the Eagles pretty much ran away with. But nonetheless, you still won. Last 2 games, 6 takeaways and a safety in the last 2 games. They're being opportunistic. They're doing a lot of things right here, this team, and they're playing extremely good football on the defensive side. And as far as the run game, been very, very effective. And that's the takeaways for me and the things that I look at as this thing progresses, because, you're going to be facing teams that are multiple, that are able to run the ball, that are able to pass the ball. Think about San Francisco with McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. Dallas, even though they laid a turd and it was beautiful last week, with Pollard and CeeDee Lamb and Buffalo, and, we go on and on and on. But to have that ability is really critical. And for this Eagles team to, again, do it on the fly, like you're going to get Washington this week, who I think they're about 8-point favorites, depending on where you shop here. You're going to get a Rams team that is better than we thought, but still a game that the Eagles will be favored in. And then it's the Jets without Rodgers. So you have some ability here to keep growing before it really gets real schedule-wise. And it will, starting with Miami. And if you saw any of that, they put a 70 spot up against Denver. By the way, how about Sean Payton? You're going to come in and you're going to crush everybody. You're going to crush Nathaniel Hackett, worst run team, worst coach team I ever saw. And you're 0-3 and you lay a dud like that. where you just get it put on you, careful what you wish for, man. And careful when you're talking a lot, what ends up happening, because that was nothing short of ugly. And his team quit. They did. As bad as things were with Nathaniel Hackett, they weren't this bad through the first 3 games. This has looked worse for Sean Payton, that's for sure. All right. We'll get another timeout in. So when we come back, we'll look at the Washington Commanders and what happened to them last week, where they are at this point, how I think this game will go. After that, we'll do some around the NFL stuff. We'll get into the Phillies as well. We got a lot to do. Don't go anywhere. This is the Rob Ellis Show on A2D Radio.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
All right, folks. Appreciate you hanging out with me as I get a quick drink there. I am Rob Ellis, Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio. Ralph, let's give them the agree to disagree one more time if folks want to chime in on this one. I feel better about the Eagles' Super Bowl chances through 3 games. Do you agree or disagree? Do you view it as, I don't know, man, the passing game isn't quite where it needs to be. You see how good you're going to have to play in a Super Bowl, what Jalen was able to do last year. Right now they're just running the ball. It makes me a little bit nervous. You still have some injuries in the secondary. Where do you fall? I actually do feel good because I feel like this is just the beginning of where they're going to be. I think there's a progression here. I think there's a build here. And I think eventually this team, we're going to look at it and say, you know what, as crazy as it sounds, they may actually be better personnel-wise. All right, so they play Washington this week. And as I mentioned, it was a good week for the Eagles, not only winning the game, but if you look at the NFC East, Cowboys go down to the Cardinals. Embarrassing loss for the Cowboys, who thought they could just show up. Typical Cowboys sniffing themselves, just show up and get smoked. Giants lost Thursday, a little bit banged up without Saquon Barkley. And then Washington loses 37-3, where in a game where Buffalo just absolutely laid the wood to them. So here's where things are right now, standings wise. And, keep in mind, these teams haven't faced off yet, the Eagles and either Washington or Dallas or New York, but Eagles 3-0, Cowboys and Washington 2-1, and Giants 1-2. All right. But as far as Washington goes, they won their first 2 games, and you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm not really sure what they are. They beat the Cardinals at home in a game that's probably too close. And then the next week they beat the Broncos in Denver. That one, at least at that time, you were saying to yourself, I don't know, maybe that's a pretty good win on the road. Denver under Sean Payton and Russell Wilson might be pretty good. And meanwhile, Denver lays down and gets absolutely annihilated last week to Miami, and they stink. So Washington's 2 wins, kind of fraudulent. I mean, let's be real about it. And then they lose last week. So as I mentioned, 9 sacks allowed, 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions for Sam Howell. It was a really rough outing for Sam Howell. And he looked like a guy who was in his first year as a starter in the NFL at quarterback. He's holding the ball too long. Now, some of this is the offensive line's fault. There are plays where he doesn't have any time and he's getting absolutely crushed. But there are other times when he's holding the ball too long. It's Carson Wentzian, how long he's holding on to the ball sometimes. And, you know how that works in the NFL. If you don't have the internal clock, you're going to get killed. And it's going to lead you into interceptions, into strip sacks, into bad things. And right now, I think Hal took a little bit of a step back. And I wonder if he doesn't go into the Eagles game a little shell-shocked because of what Buffalo did to him. I do wonder about that. This is a game that strikes me as setting up very well for the Eagles. You have an offensive line that I didn't think was that good to begin with, and they're hurt. And an Eagles defensive line right now, that is playing spectacularly, in particular at the defensive tackle spot. So I would think the Eagles should be able to get some pressure. This feels like a game 2 where it's going to start opening up for the edge guys to start getting sacks. I think you're going to see Hassan Reddick get his first sack of the season. I think you're going to see Josh Sweat be in there a lot. I think BG, who hasn't gotten a sack yet, will be in there also. I think that's where this game's going to be won. You can't give Hal time, because if you do, he's got some pretty good weapons. Terry McLaurin and Jahad Dotson. I like Brian Robinson as a running back, but Washington feels like a team to me. It's very early, but if you can keep hanging losses on them and they start to build a little bit, then the heat really starts to come on Ron Rivera, who I think is already on a hot seat because he was inherited by Josh Harris. Either way, the Eagles, as I mentioned, are about an 8-point favorite in this game. I think the Eagles win this game. I think they win it pretty handily. I'm kicking myself that I went with the over last night rather than just the Eagles. But, you live and you learn on that one. But I think the Eagles can take care of their business against Washington. All right, so let's stick in the NFC East here. Dallas goes into that game against the Cardinals, and it really did sort of feel like a game where they viewed it as we can just show up and everything's going to be fine. The thing with Dallas is that it is really starting to trend here in the first 3 weeks. They're bad in the red zone. They were a very good red zone team last year with Kellen Moore. They're not a very good red zone team with Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer. They're not cashing. And you saw Dak throw an interception in the end zone when they were trying to score a touchdown. And that's something that they had hoped he had kind of moved on from, but clearly he hasn't moved on from. And I also think that Dallas is a team that's prone to believe their own press clippings and get themselves in trouble that way, thinking they can just show up. And that was a classic case. Look, that Arizona team is not very talented. It's a game that really probably shouldn't have been close, and Dallas ends up losing the game outright. So it's a bad loss. And then the Giants went up against the 49ers without Saquon Barkley, Andrew Thomas, some other folks as well. Kept it somewhat close for a little while, but eventually they just don't have enough. The question is, even when they're healthy, do they have enough? I think Brian Dable did an amazing job coaching that team up last year. I give him a lot of credit for that. But other than Saquon, Darren Waller's a nice tight end, but what else scares you? I mean, do you also feel like if you're, and I know he did it against the Cardinals in week 2, but if I just don't feel like against a good team, if Daniel Jones has to bring you back if they're down big, not sure it happens. I'm really not. I look at it and I still think it's a 2-horse race in the NFC East with the Eagles and the Cowboys. And I think it's a 3-horse race in the NFC. I think it's Eagles, the 49ers, and the Cowboys. That's who it is. And in that order, Eagles, 49ers, Cowboys. After that, I think there's a solid fall off. Like, you got some nice teams. I'm not sure you have any special teams. Like, you have Detroit, solid team, issues defensively. Green Bay, I think better than people thought they were going to be. Atlanta, New Orleans, they're okay. I think Seattle's pretty good. If I was putting a fourth in there, ranking a fourth, it'd be Seattle. That's the order that I would go for them. So that's where things are in the NFC. Let's go over to the AFC for a minute. We can't ignore the Dolphins and what's going on. Mike McDaniel is a mad scientist type. Like, he is playing chess when everybody's playing checkers type. He's that guy. What they're doing in terms of innovation, in terms of some kind of, eyewash trickery. And I don't just mean gadget plays, just things that are kind of, all right, he's going in motion here. He's looking back to maybe pitch it there. And it's a no-look shuttle pass. Like, those kind of things, you don't see a lot of teams doing it. You got to have real confidence in your quarterback too. That's like Mahomes kind of stuff, these no looks. But anyway, you slice it, what they're doing is amazing. It really is. And that game, I think, was a byproduct of two things. One, Miami's really rolling, and they're really good, and they're really talented too. Denver is a mess. And they don't respect their coach enough to play hard the entire game, because they didn't play hard the entire game. That's just the bottom line. I said this to you before the season. What everything comes down to for Miami is Tua's health. If Tua's healthy, this team has a legitimate shot at making a run at a Super Bowl. But it is a hold your breath scenario every time he plays. So they've been the team that's just rocket ship. What you're seeing from other teams is getting better. Kansas City, healthy now, getting better. And Tay at the game. Did you I don't know if you guys saw this, but sales for Travis Kelce's jersey went up 400% since Sunday, since Taylor Swift was at the game. 400%. I hope he's getting a cut of that, or she's getting a cut, or somebody's getting a cut of that. But anyway, Kansas City starting to get back to look like Kansas City. Buffalo starting to get back to looking like Buffalo. I mean, Josh Allen has mostly cleaned things up. Their defense is playing well. I think the Steelers are getting back to playing Steeler football. Pickett's been better. Their defense is nasty. Cleveland's defense is nasty. Baltimore gets a win. You're seeing the climb here. And then I think what you're seeing with other teams, Denver being one of them for sure. I'm not buying the Chargers. I'm not buying the Raiders. Certainly not buying the Jets. And that'll bring us to the Jets, folks. So let's get into it. Joe Namath was on ESPN New York radio with Michael Kay and his crew, and said basically he's seen enough. He's done with Zach Wilson. He went on to really give it to the coaches and the front office as well. Like, he didn't hold back. It's interesting because what you usually get with alumni, especially guys who are beloved by their former teams, heroes, if you will, what you generally get from them is the party line. You're going to get, hey, they're battling. You got to give it a little bit of time, blah, blah, blah. I love the fact that Namath is just absolutely skewering what's going on there in New York. So here's the thing with Zach Wilson. Let me give you these numbers. I told you we talk about it a little bit later, but I'll give you some numbers from Zach Wilson, which tell you everything. So you may say, all right, well, maybe he's not getting time. That's why he's not been effective. That's not the case. So Zach Wilson stats with no pass rush. Quarterback rating, he's last. Completion percentage, he's last. Yards per drop back, he's 29th. So even when this guy is getting time, he's not seeing the field. He's not comprehending the field. He's not able to go through progressions quick enough. He doesn't have his clock sped up enough where he's making plays. He's just not good. There's such a hit-miss rate for quarterbacks in this league. There really is. I mean, think about how many high picks have turned out to be massive busts. And then you have guys, Jalen Hurts goes in the second round. Tom Brady's a great example of going, way later. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. It's an inexact science. It's it. There's nothing more to it. There's an art to having that kind of eye for talent, and some organizations do and some don't. You see it with certain organizations where they just kind of keep cranking guys out, and it's been a rough go for the Jets. Now, in fairness to them, they set this thing up to be Aaron Rodgers' team. And when you lose him 4 plays in, care who you are. I know they won that game that night, but I don't care who you are. You're going to take a hit. And there's like a PTSD thing to that. Like, you kind of like dust yourself off and say, what the heck just happened? So I think there is a little piece of that still happening with the Jets, but yeah, I'm not surprised. Bengals get a big win on Monday night. They needed it. Burrow out there with the bad calf. That was that's a risk reward one that you got to really weigh there. You don't want to go to 0-3. I get it. But you don't want him to re-injure that calf either. And if he re-injures that calf, that could be a major setback for weeks and weeks and weeks. It still feels like it's going to be tough because I think that AFC North is nasty. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. You got 3 2-1s and a 1-2. It's a really tough division. I actually think it's the toughest division in football because the Jets fell off. Had the Jets still had Aaron Rodgers, I may have said the AFC East, but I'm going to go with the AFC North. As far as the NFC conference, it's a battle between the East and the West. The East, you have the Eagles and the Cowboys. The West, San Fran and Seattle. I'd probably lean East, but it is pretty close there. It's not a gimme, but we've had a lot of wild things happen, injuries and upsets and wild games, through the first 3 weeks here this season. I can't believe we're already in week 4, and Sunday's games will be October already, which is absolutely crazy, to think about that we're that far along here. But give me the summer and the warm weather any day of the week, for whatever that's worth. It is fun because now we're going into that time of year where football and the baseball playoffs converge. And that is a perfect segue leading us into our next segment. We'll get a timeout here. We'll come back. Let's look at the Phillies. Phillies are about to embark on the playoffs on Tuesday. And we'll dig into what they need to do from a rotational standpoint, a rookie who could have an impact, and we'll look at the bats as well. So we'll talk some Phillies when we get back. Don't go anywhere. You're hanging with me. I am Rob Ellis, the Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
All right. Welcome back in. Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio, hanging out with you as I do each and every Tuesday for our hour of power. By the way, so much fun being on the channel with some of the great personalities and Tom and all the rest of the crew. I love it, man. Absolutely love it. By the way, all right, 6 games left for the Phillies. Magic numbers 1. Not worried about that. They are going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to be the 1 seed. It's a matter of who you want. Pick your poison. So the options are, as we go into this thing, and, some present certainly a different challenges than others, but the team I'd probably least like for them to play is Arizona. I think Arizona's got a nice combo of pitching and hitting and, could be dangerous in a short playoff setting. 3 games at Citizens Bank Park, if they're the 1 seed, which I think they will be. They're basically 5 up on Arizona and the Cubs. They're the right now 2 and 3, with the Marlins 1 game back of the Cubs and the Diamondbacks, and the Reds not dead, 2.5 back, but they're going to need some help. All right. So my pecking order of least that I would like to face, I would go Diamondbacks, Marlins. The Marlins aren't quite the same team this year. I know they've had the Phillies number in the past, but I feel like the Phillies would win a series against them. I think they'd beat the Diamondbacks too, but I think it'd be harder against the Diamondbacks and the Marlins. I really don't worry about the Cubs. I really don't worry about the Reds. I don't. I think they would be fine against either one of those 2 teams. All right, so let me go into this one first. We saw Orion Kettering, who is a rookie who's worked his way up all the way from Class A ball to the major leagues. It's been a blur of a ride, a meteoric rise for him this year, working his way up the food chain in the organization. And if you saw him the other day in his Major League Baseball debut, got 2 strikeouts. He's got the sweeper slider, whatever you want to call it, however you look at it, that's got nasty break on it. Nasty. Now, I'm old enough to remember when the Phillies, brought up Marty Bystrom in September back in 1980, and Marty Bystrom went 4-0 and was a key figure in the Phillies winning the World Series. Let me tell you, I don't think you will see Kettering here in the same role, but I think you could see him in as a relief role. I'm starting to get the sense that the Phillies will go with this, that they would actually do this, just by the way that Rob Thompson is talking about it and stuff. And what I would do is, and obviously you don't want to run the guy into the ground, but I try to get to him at least maybe 3 more times before the playoffs just to see kind of where he is. Now, he goes in there and he gets lit up and loses composure and all that. Well, then you wouldn't want him in there in a playoff setting. And that makes sense. But if he can go in there and take the same approach that he took to the Mets the other day, where he's really sort of low keyed, maybe doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. If that's the case, that's okay too. I'm a firm believer in a lot of things in life. Ignorance is bliss, that we tend to overthink things a little bit and get in our own heads. Maybe he's just one of those guys that you just throw in there and the other teams haven't seen. And they're like, whoa, what is this stuff here? So keep that in mind. That's the rookie I referenced before our timeout. But the biggest thing too is what do you do with the pitching staff? And for me, the good thing is the way the regular season closes out. So let me just run it past you here. And this is another. I think that a break that's maybe playing out the Phillies' ways. You create your breaks too by putting yourself in this position. But Wheeler would pitch on Thursday, which means you wouldn't see him in the Mets series, which means it would put him right on time for that Tuesday game in the wild card. So that's great. Depending on how they choose to go about this, I'm scared to death of Taijuan Walker. I will tell you that flat out. I'm scared to death of Michael Lorenzen. I will tell you that also flat on out. The rotation that I would go with would be Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and yes, I said it, Christopher Sanchez. So Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Sanchez. That's who I would go with. My guess is trying to read the between the tea leaves here with Rob Thompson. I think he goes Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Walker. And the thing is, Taijuan Walker's got a lot of wins, right? Nobody argues that. But if you've watched him pitch, he's gotten real lucky. You know, the win-loss record in baseball is extremely misleading. It can, you know, you can pitch horribly and get great run support. And that's, you know, what some of this has been for Walker. Or you pitch great, you come out, especially now with the quick hooks that managers have, your bullpen comes in and blows the game for you. That's not your fault. That's not on you. But anyway, I would stay away from Walker. I get their issue is they don't feel like they can use him out of the bullpen, but it's not the direction I would go. Here are some positives here. Wheeler's pitching very well. Suarez looks like he's kind of refound his footing. Alvarado looks like he's getting there. That's all good. Offensively, Real Muto's hitting it home. Now, you may not have been paying attention to this, but his splits between the road and home are unbelievable. He's hit way better away than he has home. But in that past Mets series, home run, 6 RBIs, he's doing a better job. All right. So Real Muto hitting big, clearly. Beyond that, I mean, I just think generally, you know, Castellanos hitting. And he's, you know, already driven in over 100 runs. So he's hitting. I don't have any concern about Bryce Harper in a playoff setting. We know how clutch this guy is. So Bryce Harper will be fine. And the other good thing is I think we're going to see him every day at first base, which means you're going to see an outfield that's got some shape or form of Brandon Marsh in left, Johan Rojas in center. Maybe they figure out a way to mix in Christian Pache, you know, for a defense and speed perspective. But, you know, I like that rotation. I am not going to lie to you. I'm still scared here of the Phillies bullpen. I mean, who do you really trust? I mean, think about it. Do you trust Hoffman? Okay, he's pitched very well. But do I feel great about Kimbrel? Do I feel great about Gregory Soto? You know, and I mentioned the others. No, I don't. I'm worried about them. I'm worried about how the back end of this thing looks. I really am. I feel like you may do your job here and get, I don't know, 6 runs in a game, right? If you're the Phillies offense and you're thinking to yourself, okay, all right. But is that safe? I don't know. I don't know that that's safe. So my greatest fear isn't so much that they've gotten better, because they have gotten better. The Phillies have in a lot of ways. They're better defensively. I think they're more athletic. They steal more bases. But I worry about the pitching holding up. I'm really excited to see Bohm, Stott in another playoff setting. I really am. I can't wait, because they have both been so clutch. Neither one is afraid of the big moment. Neither one's afraid to hit with 2 strikes. Obviously, that goes to, you know, along with Harper as well. But, you know, one other thing to keep in mind is they had the playoff hope last year, or experience last year. So they've been through this. They know what it's like to be in that pressure cooker. Maybe some of these teams, like the Diamondbacks, you know, like the Marlins, like the Cubs, the Reds, at least last year, didn't go through that experience. So I think that could be a really good thing for them. But yeah, I would actually, if if I can get him a couple of outings, okay, this week, and I feel good about Keckering, I would absolutely unequivocally make him part of this bullpen roster. Because let's face it, I mean, you've lost some pieces. You're just, it's okay to say that maybe you haven't been great in that setting. So it'd be fascinating to see what ends up happening there with that one. So you got the Phillies coming up, and again, 3 more games with the Pirates, 3 games with the Mets. And I let me just say one more thing too about this, the past weekend. It's easy sometimes to play down to the level of your competition, especially when that level of your competition is the Mets and they want to stick it to you and play spoiler. The Phillies didn't allow that to happen. And I think it's not even from a win total standpoint, but I would really like to see the Phillies go out there and continue. Take 2 or 3 from the Pirates, 2 or 3 from the Mets. Boom, see ya. Because you're riding a wave. We've seen this before. St. Louis in 2011, unfortunately, got into the playoffs really hot. And they rode that all the way to a World Series win. It happens a lot. The Phillies get the first game in Cincinnati, and they're riding that. Okay, they're riding that thing all the way till game 6 of the World Series. So this good Phillies team, it is. There's no real easy outs in the lineup, which is really big. And as I mentioned, Harper playing first, which makes you better defensively and more athletic, which is big. I like where this team is at. I really do. And I think that, Rob Thompson has handled these guys very well. He gave the speech last year, if you remember, after they clinched, and who was it? Or who it was? I don't remember. Anyway, so last year in the postseason, they go and they come back in St. Louis, and then they handle their business against the Braves and the Padres. Keep in mind with Atlanta, they are a team that has struggled a little bit in the postseason. Even if they have these great 100-win seasons, they have struggled. So as much as it looks daunting, and I saw odds, I'll give you the odds real quick here for the Phillies in the playoffs. So they're tied for 6th. It goes Braves, it goes Dodgers, it goes Orioles, it goes Rangers, it goes Rays, Astros, and the Phillies tied for 6th. I think it's probably about the right gauge there for them. I think that's probably where they are. But we saw the Braves and the Dodgers both have spectacular regular seasons last year and lose. The American League teams, I'll worry about that, if they get to the World Series. But the other teams in the National League, Brewers can pitch, no question. But the other wild card teams, I think the Phillies are flat out better. Then I'm excited. How can't you be excited for this? You have Bryce Harper on your team. You have guys who have come through in big moments on your team. There's a lot to like here with this Phillies club. And I think it's going to be one of those runs where a lot of this depends on Aaron Nola in that 2-hole. And your guess is as good as mine. And can the bullpen settle down? Can you get 2 more good series out of them? You saw some good things in the Mets series, but get 2 more good series out of them where they just sort of go, okay, everything's going to be fine here. Kimbrel looks like the guy we saw earlier in the year, not the guy who's kind of tired. Alvarado can throw strikes, not just walk guys and give up leadoff walks. I'll be honest with you, I don't trust Gregory Soto at all. I don't know. You have no idea what you're getting from him. He's sort of like the Aaron Nola of the bullpen. You just don't know what you're going to get. But Strahm has been solid for them. Hoffman has been solid for them. You want to throw Keckering in there, go for it. Enjoy it, folks, because starting Tuesday, we're going to be into Phillies baseball, and then we start to really get into sort of that middle portion of the Phillies schedule. And it's going to be a wild ride. It's part of the reason why you love sports. It's part of the reason why you get into this thing, if you're me. But as a fan, just enjoy it. And by the way, heed Brian Daly's advice. Hit the like and subscribe if you could. Follow all things A2D Radio. I know we would all appreciate it because we're putting out some really good stuff for you, and you can watch all throughout the day, man. And it's a lot of fun. It really is. So Eagles, Washington, I like the Eagles to win and cover that game. Phillies, again, I would rather avoid, if I could, the Diamondbacks and the Marlins. Give me the Cubs. Give me the Reds if they can somehow get in. I don't think that's likely, but we'll see what ends up happening. The good thing is the Phillies, if they are the 1 seed, and I think they will be the 1 seed, will have home field advantage in that first series. All right. Want to thank our guys here. Ralph Dell, great job, Ralph, as always, man. I appreciate your help. Tom and all the crew behind the scenes, and you see Tom in front of the camera as well, who do such a spectacular job. It is much appreciated. And I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me each and every Tuesday. It's a lot of fun. Whether I'm just ranting and raving and interacting with you in the chat, or if I have one of my guests on and we learn about their journey. It's always a blast. So appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for hanging. And I'll be back with you guys next Tuesday, same time, and we'll recap the Washington game and look ahead to the Phillies playoffs. I am Rob Ellis, the Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio. See you next week.